So tonight's true scary story is about a girl who literally witnessed 2 possessions and then got possessed herself from being around witchcraft. It is an insane story. It might be the craziest story I've heard yet. There are biblical references in this too also, so if you do not like that, then scroll. My IG is right here. I will leave it up for a minute. So today's submitter's name is Jay, and that's not her real name. She wanted to remain anonymous, so that's what we're gonna call her. Jay grew up in Mississippi. Now her older sister was a party girl. When she was about 11 years old, her older sister lived in an apartment that her father owned. She said that her sister was always partying, always drinking, always doing things that she wasn't supposed to do. One day, her sister is sitting in her apartment and she is reading a book in a recliner by her bay window, when all of a sudden she looks over at the window and she sees a reflection behind her. This reflection had horns and a huge head, and she absolutely freaks out. She jumps off the recliner, she runs into her room, and she calls her mother. Now her mother is very religious, and her mother convinces her to come home and go to church with her. Now this actually takes a lot of convincing because her sister does not want to go to church, but after they finally convince her to do so, she goes to the church and she goes and sees the pastor, and the pastor then takes all of the children that are in the church with them at that time and puts them in a Sunday room away from her. He believes that she is possessed. After looking at her, after examining her and talking to her, this is what he believes. Now Jay was one of these little kids that the pastor put in the Sunday room, and she wanted to see what was going on with her sister, so her and her friend actually snuck out and they were looking through the window to see what was going on with the pastor, her sister, and her mother. And what they saw was horrific. So what they see is the pastor and a bunch of other people start praying around her sister. Her sister immediately starts swinging on the pastor. She then drops to the ground and starts crawling around on the floor like a snake, like in between chairs and furniture. Then stands back up. Her mom calls her name and she looks over at her mom like this, and it looks nothing like her sister. Her mom, the pastors, and the other people then have to grab her sister and hold her down. As they are doing this, her little sister is looking from the window and she all of a sudden sees 8 white clouds, like clouds of smoke, form above her and then just move down the hallway as if 8 things were coming out of her sister. Jay said that she had never seen anything like it. When all of a sudden her sister gets up, she starts crying and she hugs her mom and says, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. That was not me. I am so sorry." Her sister is okay after that, but then unfortunately 2 years later, she was unalived by a heart attack. So whether this was created from that or not, they do not know, but that is absolutely heart-wrenching. She was so young. Fast forward to when Jay is now 16 years old. She's in her computer room and she is playing with her friend on the computer. They are sitting on 2 chairs. One of the chairs has wheels and the other one does not. Her friend Dana is on the chair with no wheels, when all of a sudden it just slides backwards super fast into the filing cabinet, just whew, into the filing cabinet. Jay and Dana are absolutely freaking out at this point, and they run into the living room and they tell their mom what's happening. Well, they tell Jay's mom what's happening, and Jay's mom is like, it's okay. She calms them down. But later on, a few days later, Jay's mom is sitting in the living room and she's watching TV, and there's Uno cards on top of their mantle, when all of a sudden the Uno cards, with absolutely no breeze whatsoever, just start slowly flying off the mantle, one by one by one. So Jay's mom's brother is a pastor, and so she calls him and she's like, "We need your help." And he comes over and he blesses the house. And after he blesses the house, this actually works for about 1 year. But then 1 year later, Jay, her friend Dana, and another person are in a car and they are driving around a curb, when all of a sudden they're driving around a curb and Dana just falls to the floor of the car and she starts screaming, "It's burning! It's burning! It's burning!" Jay immediately is like, oh my God. She thinks back to her sister and she's like, something is happening to her. What if this is another demon incident? So she lifts her hands off of the steering wheel and starts praying over her friend. She says she has no idea how the steering wheel did not like go into a brush or like crash the car, but it didn't. She lifted her hands, the car stayed straight, and she just prayed over her friend. While Jay is praying over her friend, all of a sudden her friend just starts cussing her out, screaming at her. So Jay's like, "We're turning the car around right now. I'm calling my mom. We have to go meet my mom." So she calls her mom and she's like, "We're coming over. Something is happening to Dana again." So she turns the car around, she goes home, her mom is waiting outside for her, and she immediately gets Dana out of the car, and Dana is like calm down a little bit as soon as they got into the house, and Dana just keeps saying, my back, my back, my back hurts so bad. So Jay is like, we need to pull up your shirt and see what's going on. So they pull up her shirt, and what she sees is like it's straight out of a movie. They see a huge cross on her back, but not just a cross. It looked like a bullwhip had whipped her this way and then whipped her that way. And then she also has scratches all over her thighs and her legs. Again, her mom calls her brother and she's like, you need to get over here. Something is happening again. So her brother comes over, and as soon as her brother gets out of the car, he doesn't even step foot into the house before he says, someone here has been playing with witchcraft. Her uncle had two of her cousins with them, and as soon as they came inside of the house, Dana looks at Jay and says, please don't do this. This will break us apart. And at the time, Jay had no idea what she was talking about. So Jay's mom actually calls the third person that was in the car. Her name was Elle, and she calls her over so that her brother, Jay's uncle, can come over and actually pray over Jay. He starts to pray over Jay. He puts his hand on her head, starts praying, and then Jay's sister comes over, throws her down, puts her hand on her forehead, and says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. She then says, I see my baby sister, and all of a sudden Jay gets violently ill. She just starts throwing up green stuff, and she said that everything went black. She doesn't really remember anything that happened, except for she remembers her throwing up, and she remembers that everyone was praying except for Dana. Dana was sitting by the bay window and just like in a fetal position. Now, why they were praying over Jay, I'm not sure. She thinks that it may be because she was playing with a Ouija board when she was younger, or because she found out that Dana was practicing witchcraft and she was hanging out with Dana. Now, Jay looks at her uncle and she's like, I don't understand what just happened. And he's like, you had something inside of you. And she's like, how? I was just praying earlier over Dana. How could I have something inside of me if I was praying? And he said, just because you were praying doesn't mean that you don't have anything inside of you. You've been around a bunch of negative things in your life, and it just accumulated, and now it entered you. Jay is no longer friends with Dana because she still practices witchcraft, and Jay is actually a Christian and still goes to church to this day. But she just wanted to make it very clear that demons are real and that this really can happen to people. She wanted to give a warning. She also said that if you get possessed and something happens to you because you are doing something that you shouldn't be, or around people that you shouldn't be that are doing things wrong, that if you get it out of you and then you go back to that lifestyle afterwards, that 7 demons are supposed to return. Now, she actually sent me a picture of the demon that her sister saw when she was laying back in the recliner and saw that reflection in the window. So this is what she saw. This is what she said she saw. And then this is the Bible verse that talks about how 7 demons will return if you go back to your old ways after you were already possessed. It's right here. Now, she is going to be reading all the comments, so if you guys have any comments for her, suggestions, point of views, drop them in the comments. She will be reading them. Also, I would like to know what your thoughts are on this. What the hell do you think happened here? Because this was absolutely insane. Do not play with witchcraft. Do not play with Ouija boards. Do not play with any of that stuff. It is so freaking dangerous. Guys, my name is Kaisa. I give true scary stories on here every single night. Otherwise, I just need you guys to do one last thing for me. But what is it? Have a spooky night. Love you guys.